pessimism about this, or your pessimism about the general election, the reason why Joe Biden is going to beat Donald Trump is because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
The Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense," and talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay, that's why people vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating by sports by sex makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And if you think it doesn't, you can't lead the country. Senator Schiff, given the ongoing political tensions and Trump's actions toward his critics, do you think President Biden's preemptive pardons turned out to be more important than initially expected? Let's first tell people what that means, preemptive pardons. That was pretty unprecedented, right? Before he left office, Joe Biden pardoned you and a number of people who he thought Trump would go after.
No, I take the opposite view. I don't think he should have given the pardons at all.
Really?
No, I don't think he should have, and I was vocal about that at the time.
Can you refuse a pardon?
That's less clear because in the case of the January 6th committee, he pardoned essentially the whole committee.
Bill Maher just set a trap on Lev TV, and Schiff walked straight into it. What looked like a routine back and forth turned into the most awkward 78 seconds of the entire interview. No long setup, no forced moment. Maher just let Schiff talk, let him commit, then pulled the rug. And once that hit, there was no coming back. Hit subscribe and let's get into it.
This statement from the administration: the president had the constitutional authority to direct the use of military force because he could reasonably determine that such use of force was in the national interest. That's too vague for you?
Totally vague.
Okay, because that's from Obama about Libya.
Well, Obama made the argument initially that he could go into Syria without an authorization. I and many others pushed back on that argument. Ultimately, he did not go forward with going after Assad, even though Assad was gassing his own people, because he thought he might lose the vote in Congress. But I respect the fact that was important to him. And the fact that he did not have the support of Congress meant that we weren't.
Maher didn't just challenge Schiff, he baited him. He read a statement about why Obama intervened in Libya, then asked if it sounded too vague. Schiff didn't hesitate. Instant yes. No caution, no pause, just yes. He reacted before he knew who said it. And that was the whole trap. Those words weren't Trump's. They were Obama's. The second Maher revealed that, boom, the entire exchange flipped. Schiff awkwardly pivoted to Assad because now the double standard was sitting right there in plain sight. He judged the exact same words differently based on who he thought said them. That's not a small slip. That's the whole point.
I think it's true justice. The only thing he cares about is himself and money. And going after the money is a way to bring about some real justice.
And that's the real problem. The standard keeps shifting depending on who's in the frame. When Trump's involved, every word becomes proof of danger, corruption, chaos, every phrase stretched to its absolute worst. But when establishment figures do the same thing, the tone softens, the excuses come faster, the outrage just fades. Maher keeps hammering this because voters can see it. They can see when one side gets buried while the other gets a pass. And once you notice that pattern, you can't unsee it.
Schiff, given the ongoing political tensions and Trump's actions toward his critics, do you think President Biden's preemptive pardons turned out to be more important than initially expected? Let's first tell people what that means, preemptive pardons. That was pretty unprecedented, right? Before he left office, Joe Biden pardoned you and a number of people who he thought Trump would go after.
No, I take the opposite view. I don't think he should have given the pardons at all.
Really?
No, I don't think he should have, and I was vocal about that at the time.
Can you refuse a pardon?
That's less clear because in the case of the January 6th committee, he pardoned essentially the whole committee.
Then Maher moves into another uncomfortable zone, the pardon question. Schiff says Biden shouldn't have issued those preemptive pardons. Fine, but that opens the obvious follow-up: there's no clean way around. If there was nothing to worry about, why issue them at all? That's the tension. That's why it sticks. It doesn't prove wrongdoing on its own. But politically, the optics are bad, and bad optics have a long shelf life. Once that contradiction hits the open air, people keep circling back, keep asking the same question, because the answer never quite lands clean.
I don't share your pessimism about this or your pessimism about the general election. The reason why Joe Biden is going to beat Donald Trump is because at the end of the day, America is going to want a president who is a decent human being, who doesn't shit on other people, who has some interest in the American people, some interest in something beyond himself. I think at the end of the day, people are going to reject this bigoted, divisive figure.
Before the 2024 election, Schiff sounded certain in his tone, certain in his framing, certain Trump would be rejected. That confidence didn't age well. When the votes came in, Trump's support wasn't some fringe fluke. It wasn't just major loyalists. He pulled liberal-leaning voters too, won key battleground states, and took the popular vote, the first Republican to do that in 20 years. That's what made Schiff's certainty collapse. His shock didn't just reveal he misread the race, he misread the country. And that's the danger of career politicians. They talk about the pulse of the people without ever actually feeling it.
And I'm just getting tired of seeing so much stuff targeted in his direction, but somehow, some way he still survives. I mean, we're talking about a situation where he's still going to be the GOP nominee. He's still going to be running for president. You're President Biden. That's the individual that you're going to have to beat. 4 indictments, 91 counts. They ain't even bringing up the bankruptcies, ain't even bringing up this particular issue with this civil case, and somehow, some way, he puts cats to shame because he clearly has more than 9 lives.
And here's the wild part. Look at everything thrown at Trump to end his political career. Serious allegations, vote buying claims, fascist labels, authoritarian warnings. The list never stopped. At times it felt like every institution was locked onto the same mission: destroy him at all costs. And yet, he didn't disappear. He didn't break. He stayed in the fight, built support, and won. That's where the strategy collapsed. Because when the attacks never stop, some voters stop hearing accountability and start hearing obsession. People weigh what they're told against what they actually live. That doesn't mean every criticism was wrong. It means messaging has limits, and voters aren't as easy to move as political strategists like to think.
The Atlantic put out an article last year, and it was called "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense."
Right.
And talked about how we separate sports like the WNBA and just because it's just socialization. This is insane.
I agree.
Okay. That's why people vote for Trump. Mm-hmm. Because there's stuff like that on the left that people just go, I know Trump's horrible, but separating sports by sex makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And if you think it doesn't, you can't lead the...
That's where the authenticity argument comes in. A lot of supporters look at Trump and think, at least he's obvious. Messy, sure. Reckless sometimes. But what you see is what you get. He doesn't sand down the rough edges. He doesn't polish every line until it sounds like it came out of a focus group. Now compare that to the carefully scripted, heavily rehearsed politicians, and the contrast hits fast. Fair or not, voters hear that polished language and think calculation. They hear long explanations and think dodge. They hear rehearsed answers and feel distance. And in a climate this skeptical, bluntness can cut deeper than polish. It can sound more honest, even when it's rough.
But if this is the... And so the FBI came in and arrested the judge. No, I haven't heard that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever read arrested a judge. So is this significant?
Well, I think
I'm not going to comment on something I don't know more about than what you've just told me.
You read about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I read about it, but I don't know.
So you don't trust anything either, and you work for the New York Times.
Well...
Think about this. Bret Stephens, a columnist at the New York Times, has openly criticized his own employer. When someone inside one of the most powerful outlets in the country questions the institution he writes for, that means something. And he's not alone. A lot of people already feel like coverage gets built around the narrative first, then the facts get fitted in after. For critics, it confirms what they've suspected: some outlets carry real internal bias, especially when it comes to Trump, and the logic isn't complicated. Negative coverage drives clicks, fuels engagement, moves faster than nuance. In an attention economy, that incentive shapes decisions, quietly but powerfully. That's not a conspiracy theory, that's just how the business works. And once viewers feel like they're being managed instead of informed, trust collapses fast. Now, to be fair, internal disagreement in a newsroom can signal healthy debate, not coordinated bias. But moments like these feed skepticism in audiences already convinced certain narratives are being pushed harder than others. And that skepticism, once it takes root, it doesn't let go easy.
But this was our big gun. Now it just looks like you're stalking him. I think in the eyes of the people who don't follow it that closely, which is most of the country, here's the thing about Bob Mueller. He's like the last person, maybe the last thing in America that left and right agreed on. Left and right basically agreed. This is a guy of honor. This is an honest guy. This is an honest broker. Whatever he says goes. Americans are not into details. Don't read it to me, Bob. Just give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down. The fact that he was like, I don't. If you couldn't impeach before, how are you going to impeach after?
Maher drives it home with the Russia investigation. For years, the public was told something massive was coming. The buildup was intense. The expectations were through the roof. The tone made it sound like a final, crushing reveal was just around the corner, and when the result didn't match, that gap mattered, because once people feel like they were sold certainty and handed ambiguity instead, trust starts to crack. And when that happens enough times, even legitimate claims lose their punch. That's why moments like this still land. They remind people how often political narratives get inflated, pushed hard, then fail to deliver the clean ending they promised. And every time that cycle repeats, the audience gets a little harder to convince.
Let's stop talking about Trump. We talk about him too much. We want to tell people what we're going to do for them. Healthcare, environment, those kind of issues. For example, I've seen you on TV a lot in the last couple of years. I know everything you know or that you tell us about the Russian situation. I don't have a clue what you think about healthcare. I've never heard it. I don't know whether you're for Medicare for all or improve Obamacare or get a chicken. I don't know what.
In the end, Maher's message lands hard not as a punchline, not just a gotcha. A genuine warning, he's pointing at something bigger than one interview or one politician. He's pointing at a deeper frustration running through both politics and media, shifting standards, selective outrage, and polished answers that fall apart the second someone actually tests them. And every time the conversation tries to drift, moments like this drag it right back. Because voters are tired of the double talk, tired of safe narratives, tired of rehearsed answers packed with words that mean nothing. They don't want performance. They want consistency. They want clarity. They want the same standard applied regardless of the name attached to the story. That's it. If this breakdown hit, drop a like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.